Good morning, good afternoon, and a very happy hump day, guys. Hope you're having a fantastic week so far. And to all you Star Wars fans out there, may the 4th be with you. Hope you're having a great day. Before I say hello to the chat, let me introduce my guest for today. It is the master craftsman himself, Andy Masterson. How are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful, Purple. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you for being here. We were chatting away in the green room, and I was just gushing over Andy's work. So just before we really get into it, let me say hello and welcome to the chat. We have got Darius Munchausen. Good morning. We've got Brandon, Andy, Bud, Martin. Hello, guys. Thank you so much for being here. We've got Paul Cook. Good afternoon. Amanda Manefran. Good morning. Psychodorf 9. Good morning, love. Keely Chow. Roll Tide, Keely. Apollomies Minion. Hello, sweetheart. Good to see you as always. Jim the Viking, he says, purple is coming. Hello, Jim. Good afternoon. And we also got a member chat from him. He said, salutations, fellow heathens. May the 4th be with you. Sitting here waiting for Purple to start streaming and a delivery later on from BCS. Nice. Very cool. Sounds like you're having a good day so far. Good to see you. We have got Shield Ward of Dragons. Great to see you. Dave G. Sound. Good morning, love. Hello, Whitechapel. Great to see you. Roger Ryder. Good morning. Howdy. I can't do it the way Americans do. It just sounds silly. And we've got Gum Bunny and Nearsighted Cyclops. Hello, my loves. Great to see you. So, as we were chatting away in the green room and I was getting a little bit of kind of background information, let's start from the beginning. Have you always been a collector of action figures? Has this always been a passion?
Well, it's funny because when I was little, I'm the youngest of four brothers, and so I had not only my toys to play with, but like hand-me-downs from my brothers when they would outgrow them. So they were a big part of my life. I was allergic to everything. I had horrible eyesight. I wasn't very good at sports because I could barely see anything if my glasses got jostled or anything. So I spent a lot of time in my room playing with Legos and action figures. And I started collecting comic books when I was about 8 years old. That was 1976, or my earliest comic books. And the happiest day of my life was when I finally got the Mego figures of Captain America and Falcon.
I love the Mego figures. Oh, they were so good.
It's funny now because when you compare them next to like the Hot Toys figures, it's like, ooh, but for a kid,
they almost look bootleg, don't they? Yes.
Yeah. So, but it was, and then I stupidly listened to everybody when they told me I had to get rid of my toys. And it was in the early 90s. I had a friend of mine, who I have an action figure of. He's a black guy who played bass in a heavy metal band. And one day he says to me, are you busy? I'm like, no, why? Like, well, you want to go up to the Star Wars or Star Trek convention in Valley Forge, Pennsylvania. So it's about an hour away. So we ride up there. Right now, me in the early 90s, my hair's down the middle of my back. We ride motorcycles up to there, and so we get out there, and he's decked out. Everything he always wore was always all black. He's got like got motorcycle helmets, black leather jackets, motorcycle jackets on, and we're walking through this thing, and everyone that's dressed up as Klingons are looking at us like we're crazy or weirdos. Right?
It's like, who the hell are these guys?
But he had an action figure of Persis Kambala's Ilea character from the first movie, and she was there, and he wanted to get her to sign it. And so I'm like, what, you just happen to have this? He had this massive collection of toys, and he still does. He's got well over 1,000 figures, and a bunch of costumes or everything. He does some impressive work himself, although he refuses to believe it. So that got me into the idea of like, wait, adults can collect toys. So I started picking up all the little Toy Biz Marvel figures, and I just kind of like what Gary does in his studio there. I just kept them in the packages and just put push pins in my wall and just hung the figures up all the way around. And then when in '99, when my son was born, we're walking through a toy store, and I picked up this Hasbro 12-inch Obi-Wan Kenobi figures on clearance, and from the Phantom Menace. I said to his mother, I'm like, I'm getting this for him. And she's like, oh, you don't even know if he's going to like Star Wars. I said, oh, he'll like Star Wars. And
it's predestined. It's going to happen.
Well, it was great because I started showing him these movies like when he was very young. And I remember one day he came up to me he's holding his sippy cup in one hand and his Darth Vader figure in the other. And he says, Daddy, Darth Vader say, Wook, I da fada.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, that was the beginning. And then I started picking up all these Hasbro figures for him, and I would wait till they were on clearance because I couldn't, in good conscience, pay like $20 for an action figure. So looking back, that's rather silly. So I started collecting these things and going on eBay, and I found some of the old forum sites that were so popular back then, and they would announce like what was being released so you could try and get to the store and catch these things. And I went on eBay and I picked up all of these old Hasbro figures, which we still have 5 totes of them up in the attic. But there was a section in there on these forums about customizing, about how to actually make custom heads in resin and put them on the bodies. So I'm like, all right, let me try this. So I started sculpting, and back in the early '90s, the first figure I ever sculpted, well, it wasn't a figure, it was a statue of Spawn, and unfortunately it fell and shattered. But I was like, wow, this is a lot of fun. So I started looking into sculpting more and things, and then I got into how to just make a head sculpt and you put it on a body. Now back then, my selection of bodies was basically Hasbro, and they looked very toy-like and clunky. Later on, they started to get a little bit more realistic looking, but they were very, very chunky, very, very toy-like. And so when Sideshow took they subcontracted the 6-scale license from Hasbro, and they announced their first figure was going to be Jedi Luke, and I was like, it's going to be like $40. I'm like, I'm never spending $40 for an action.
Famous last words.
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
But I was curious, and I wanted to see what these things were. So I went on eBay and I found a Highlander figure, and I was like, you know what, let me just order this thing and see what it's like. Then I ordered another Highlander figure.
And
I started ordering
down the rabbit hole. Yes.
All the Buffy the Vampire Slayer figures. And so I started amassing this collection. And then I made my son, I took an Anakin body and I popped the head off, and I sculpted his head and I put it on the body. So now he could have his own action figure to play with the other ones. And then my daughter, she was like, she wanted one, and she's, almost 3 years younger than him. So I had to make her a little action figure. And then and of course I dressed hers up because her favorite was Dora the Explorer. So she just would play with her Dora the Explorer figure with hers.
Cute.
And then as they got older, I eventually made them current day, well, sort of current day. They're a few years old now. And then I had made figures for friends of mine, like my friend Kat, who got me into the collection.
Yes, it's funny you should mention about making figures, because we've got one of the most elaborate figures that you've made from one of our members in the chat at the moment, Mexican Iron Man, and he sent us a super chat. He says, Andy, I might need to order another action in quotations figure for Purple Valkyrie so she can play with Mexican Iron Man all year round. Giggity.
Well, it was funny because when Mexican Iron Man, he contacted me about doing the Mexican Iron Man figure. And so we were putting together about how to actually do this and stuff like that, what it would entail. And initially, he wanted me to repaint a Hot Toys figure. Now, a Hot Toys Iron Man figure goes for about $360.
Mm-hmm.
They are very expensive, but they're die cast. And so I said to him, like, well, why don't you go with this knockoff? See what happens when these companies go to China and they hire a factory to make these figures for them. And what they'll do is they'll take the molds, they create the molds for Hot Toys, they fulfill their order and send it out to them. And then before they dismantle everything, they run off a couple million copies of their own and sell them on the black market. So, which works out really well for people that can't necessarily afford to go and buy a $360 Iron Man figure. So as you're doing this, it's like you're getting this. It's basically the same thing, but a lot cheaper. The materials aren't quite as good. It's not quite as durable and so forth, but it's good enough to get you by. So he said, all right, well, let's do that one. So it will be a little bit cheaper. So we went ahead and did that. And in the meantime, because I knew this was going to take a while, so I made him his Darth Poppy figure. And so I dressed him up in a Mexican style Sith outfit with elaborate cowboy boots, and I put him on a Sith speeder with a little droid in the back that would cook tacos as he goes along.
That was one of the things I was so impressed with when he was doing the unboxing. Not just the figure itself, but the accessories that you put in with it. We were blown away by them.
Well, I've always had this very sarcastic sense of humor. It kind of started in high school. When I was in high school, I had commercial art classes, and they took up 3 periods a day. So for my 11th and 12th grade, I had a block of three periods a day doing nothing but art and preparing you for a career in the art fields, which I never followed through with. Well, maybe up until now. So one of the things we did, we had a photography class in there, and you learned how to develop your own cameras, your own film, and print out your own pictures. Back in the Stone Age, when everything was chemically produced instead of all the digital stuff. So my teacher loved me. She was like, whenever she needed something done for the school, she would have me help out and do things. I was never. I'm not an arrogant person. I don't consider I see the professional level stuff that these people produce, and I'm nowhere near that quality. I was one of the best artists in the school, in high school. And I always worked better under pressure. So when we would get a deadline, I would usually wait till like 2 or 3 days before the assignment was due, crank it out and get an A on it. We had some contests and things like that were within the whole school with all the art classes. And I was never great at any one thing, but I was pretty good at everything. So I would just always try different mediums. And so I'm walking around with my camera because the camera was your hall pass. You could just go around, take pictures of different things, try and get good composition, develop them, and put them through there. So I've always had this problem with following rules. Me and authority don't get along well. So I would wander around and get into some things. And there were a couple of the English teachers that I was very friendly with. There was one teacher, Mr. Gavani, who they usually would send him all the bad kids. He was a Vietnam veteran. And these guys were they were hippies from the 70s. This is back in 1985, 84, 85. And so they were a little bit more free thinking, and they would butt heads with this little supervisor that was in there. He believed that school should be lecture half the period, give out a worksheet, and that's school. And these guys were actually trying to, Mr. Feen and Mr. Gavani were actually trying to get kids to think and have you read something and ask you questions about what you thought about it. So I'm sitting in class one day and I'm doodling, and this little supervisor, he's this short, bald-headed Italian guy with this permanent scowl on his face, just like. So I sketch him sitting there like, and I dress him up as Napoleon, and I'm walking past the teachers, and as we're handing in our work, I hand him this thing along with it, and he starts busting up laughing. He runs down, shows the other teacher. Before I know it, they have me like making this whole series of pictures of this guy. And then I started getting really creative, and I made a little set of, it looked like a firing squad where it had the two teachers there and had the little supervisor there dressed up like a Nazi with a machine gun. And you would press the button and the rubber band would snap these guys down. And I made a working set of gallows.
Jeez, you didn't get in trouble for any of this.
This is back before before we got into the political correctness we have, because I actually had my own. I actually had my own terrorist group in high school that I didn't know anything about. But yeah, they that was the beginning of like that process. So.
Just quickly, let me say a massive thank you and good afternoon to Paul Cook, who sent us a super chat as well. He says, couldn't really afford it as a kid like everybody here, so it's cool having adult money to buy what catches my eye. I've heard that said a lot of times with collectors. There's stuff that they really wanted as kids, be it Star Wars or Star Trek or anything that they really loved, but there were certain toys that they coveted but just could not get their hands on. So to be able to own it as adults, I think it seems to bring people a lot of joy. It's not just the nostalgia, it's the finally getting to own these pieces that they always wanted.
Yeah. Yeah, that's I think like having a representation on your shelf, and that's my favorite thing about this is that no matter what they do to our franchises, no matter what they do to our IPs, you can set up your shelf and it can be whatever you remember it as. You can put it up there, and it's really your world and your interpretation.
Absolutely. Let me just welcome a few more familiar friends we've got who have joined. We've got Pops, great to see you. Good morning. Darius Munsers, and we've got Mr. Tickletrunk. Zax, good morning, love. We've got a few more. Soul Assassin, great to see you. And Low Spec Linux Laptop. And of course, Mexican Iron Man, Poppy himself. Good morning, guys. Great to see you.
I love Mexican Iron Man. He's great.
He really is.
He's got such a big heart.
What I was going to ask, because obviously you are incredibly talented when it comes to capturing the likenesses, and we've seen several of them now where you've done of the various YouTube stars that we all know and love. How do you go about creating them? Do you work off? Do you go by sites, or do you have to get a lot of pictures and really kind of study your subjects?
Yeah, that's the main thing that I do is like I'll start getting an idea about how to first is picking your target, and then you go about collecting screenshots and pictures that because you have to catch at different angles. And what I usually do, if I have someone who is getting. When I first started this, it was sort of like guerrilla warfare. I really didn't anticipate like the kind of reaction this would happen. I just thought I was having fun. And in the first few times they went out there, it was great because nobody knew who I was. And now people see my name on a return address, they're like, they know what's coming a little bit. So it's kind of ruined the surprise a little. But on the one hand, it's helpful because now I can actually get source photos from people to help me make the likeness a little bit better. Now, for example, I didn't sculpt this one, but what I'll do is I'll have people take a picture front on, like a little bit of an angle, a profile, like a little bit like this, a little bit like this. So as you're sculpting, I can start working on these things. And compare like the angles and things to try and get them right. Now,
Mm-hmm.
capturing screens from live streams is a little difficult because there's a little bit of a distortion through a video camera rather than like a stationary camera. Even with a stationary camera, there's a little bit of a distortion effect. But using multiple sources, you can pretty much get a somewhat accurate likeness coming out. Now, sometimes the likenesses come out, like the fastest I've ever done one is about 4.5 hours. And sometimes the magic just happens and it comes out great. Other times I will be working months on a sculpture that you have to put it up for a little bit and then look at it with fresh eyes. Then you start to see the mistakes you've made, and like then you have to try and correct.
Yes, I found that absolutely. And we were talking about sculpting just before we went live, and I guess it's the same with all types of art. Once you get to a certain point and it's just not falling into place, the best thing that you can do is put it down, walk away, and come back to it, because deep down, if you keep messing with it, you're going to ruin it.
Exactly. Yes. So that's the process that I do. I'll start off with a little bit of a block of wood, and I'll mount the head on here. You make a basic shape, you try and get as symmetrical as you can, and you put that on there. And then because what I found is originally I didn't do this, and just by holding the clay in your hand, it's deforming it. So you would get the face sculpt done, and then like the head's going to be a little lopsided, and then you're like, you can't push in on it or else you squish the face and you have to start all over again. So I realized pretty quickly that I had to like sort of mount these things on a firm foundation and then just start working the process through. And then of course I got like the sculpting tools. Now I usually work with Super Sculpey Firm, and it's really good. It's regular Sculpey is very, very soft, and
yes,
it doesn't hold
very, very
detail
pliable.
Well.
Yeah.
But this stuff works a lot better. Now it can actually make your hands a little bit sore when you first start kneading it, because it's pretty tough. But then once you get it working, I found it works really well. And then what I'll do if I have to make hair for a figure, I'll use the softer Sculpey to put that on after. Like I sculpt everything bald, and then I work the hair in with the softer Sculpey, because I find that's a little bit easier to work with when you start doing things like very thin sculpting tools. And there's a company around here, well, probably everywhere, Harbor Freight, and they sell everything dirt cheap. It's very cheap tools and stuff. But I found the sculpting tools in there. They're in the lockpick section, and then you make some of your own tools, like take a piece of metal, hammer it out into something nice and thin, using some wires and stuff that you can get in there.
I use wire cutter as well to get through it, almost like a cheese cutter. Yes.
Yeah, and then like taking little bits of wire and hammering it down into very fine pieces so you can get some lines in there. And then just trial and error and like different. I found that it's not so much capturing exact detail, but it's the illusion of a detail that's more important. It's like you don't want to go in there and put in every fold of an eye, because it really makes your character look older. And I found that what's really difficult is the prettier people are, the harder they are to sculpt. When like my face is pretty beat up, like because my son was like, he said, "Well, Daddy, I need a figure of you." So like I sculpted, like my nose is all beat up and broken multiple times, and face is the wrong way. And
so you're saying if a face has character, it's a lot easier to
because
put
there's
into the clay.
something you can grab onto. Now, my start with all this, and I've covered this in different things, but like really quick. My brother Ed, of all my brothers, I was closest with him, and he we were collecting things. He would come over to my house and he would see all the stuff I was buying for my son, and he would like, "That's ridiculous, but let me see it." So when his son was born and got a little bit older, I started going over to his house and noticing all the all the different action figures that were popping up. Now, my nephew, he was a huge Spider-Man fan. And my brother was the world's biggest Thor fan. So every time we go over there, it was like, hey, I see you got a new Thor figure. And I was like, well, yeah, I mean, it was there. So and I tried to convince him to pick up a Hot Toys Thor figure from the movies. And so I'm never going to pay that much money for a figure. So I was like, oh, you know what? I'm going to start working on an action figure of him. So I started working on that. And then he was diagnosed with cancer. And so he went in, chemo, surgery, he had surgery, and put on chemo. Everything was looking good. And like, I'm working on this figure. And then cancer came back. So I'm like, okay, I really got to get into overdrive and put this figure together. So he just gets this thing, gets the news that he's back on chemo, and we talked every day. And so I call him up. I didn't get the box done the way I wanted it to, but it was close enough. So I get this thing done. I'm like, I call him, you want to be home? He's like, yeah, why? Like, I made something for you. He's like, yeah, I'll be here. So I come over, and his chair is facing away from the front door. I walked in, I handed him his box, and the cancer was in his neck. So he had a little bit of loss of mobility. So he was kind of reaching over like this. I can't see his face, and he opens up this box. And when I tell you, like, and we lived together for 30 years, like, I knew him better than anybody. And I could hear, like, before that, like, how down he was in his voice. And then he turns around, and he's got the biggest grin on his face when he's looking at this thing. He said, this may be the coolest gift I've ever gotten. And he put that up on his entertainment center, and everybody that walked in the house had to go over and check out the action figure that I made.
That's incredible.
So that reaction was like kind of like what was my incentive for. And I've made these things for friends and stuff like that over the years. Unfortunately, my brother passed away. But
I'm sorry.
I still have his action figure here. So it was like the following Christmas, I was like, you know what? We would all get together on Christmas Eve at my house. So I decided, like, I'm going to make everybody their own action figure for Christmas. Like, we can't be together. We could be together on this shelf. So I did a whole Star Wars theme and stuff like that. And I put everybody up there, and it was a monumental effort. I mean, I think I did like 10 or 12 figures, like, put out there and sent everybody home with their action figure of my niece and my nephews, and my brothers had theirs. And well, my one nephew is just horribly good looking. He's like, he's just way too pretty.
That's a nice way to put it.
And he just got married to a lovely young lady who's just as pretty as he, and they have this adorable little girl. But he was the hardest one to sculpt because, like, everything's so symmetrical on his face. Like, you can't, like, like with a face like mine with the jagged nose and like, and the deep set eyes and like all, you can mess up a little bit, but it kind of gets hidden in all that. When you've got somebody who's like, and with women, this is really difficult because everything has to be so subtle. And I have a friend of mine that I made a figure for about 2 years ago, and he's Vietnamese. And Asian features are also soft, and you really have to try and capture that likeness in there, and it's difficult. It's like, and the more photo sources you have, the better off you'll get for it. But it's a process. Sometimes it goes great. Sometimes it's difficult. It will really test your limits. So
Mexican Iron Man, thank you, Poppy. He's calling you out a little bit. He says, wait a dang minute. What the hell, Andy? When I asked you, you told me my face was the easiest to do. Hashtag beat up taco face.
No, but he's got very distinctive features. Now, one thing I picked up on from art school, because we had a whole section we did of caricature. And what you do is, like, it's the emphasis when you're caricaturing someone, you pick features, and there's different ways to do caricatures. You can focus on the negatives, or you can focus on the positives. So it's the same sort of thing. Like what you do is you pick up on someone's head sculpt, and you say, all right, what is the most recognizable feature on their face? And you want to stress that. Now, a lot of times it's the triangle between, like, the eyes and the nose, which is huge, but also the shape of the mouth. And what you're doing is you're looking at this and you're trying to find the shapes within inside the face to make those angles and those geometric shapes match up. And that's really what captures the likeness. And then paint applications are a little bit difficult as well. And I'm actually thinking of enlisting my daughter now that she's off from college for the summer, because she has an amazing talent for color and blending colors, much better than me. So I'm like, I might be,
got a little job for you. That's incredible. I was going to ask you, of all the figures that you made, of all the the faces that you've made, which has been the most satisfying, do you think? Which is the one that you've kind of sat back and looked in, you thought, yes, I've absolutely nailed this?
Ooh, okay. So when I started doing this, like I said, I didn't have a whole lot of time to watch a lot of these channels and stuff. My first figure was Doomcock. Then I made Nerdrotic. Nerdrotics was actually pretty easy to do because, like, a lot of his face is hidden with the beard and stuff like that. And like, and fortunately, Gary had a lot of pictures out there of himself, like, that I could use as source photos. They went pretty easily. Then I did and Az came out pretty good. He was
let me make this full screen because we love these figures. Look at that. So that is incredible.
Yeah, that took a while to get down, because a lot of the YouTube creators, they're always facing forward, and you have to go through hours and hours of footage to find when, like, they just happen to turn sideways and you can get a profile shot.
You have to send them a super chat and say, could you just turn your head just slightly to the right?
Well, that was the thing. When I first started doing this, I was like, I didn't want to tip my hand about anything. So I'd send a super chat in for Doomcock, and Gary asked, like, how tall they were, because, like, the figures have different heights and things like that. And I figured,
I was going to ask you, are they height, appropriate as well, or do you use a standard size body?
Well, when I first started doing this, there was very, very limited options in the figures, in the bodies you could buy. There was basically Sideshow Toys, and their figures, they put out a line of zombies like this. Now, the bodies they have are very stiff and rigid, and they don't really hold poses looking realistically. Then Hot Toys came along, and they developed what they called this True Type body, which was immediately copied by these manufacturing plants in China and mass produced. They flooded the market. When Hot Toys first put out their individual bodies, they were running for about like $50 to $60 a piece. The figure I used for my brother Ed's figure, he was a big guy. He was, like, when he was 49 years old, he was squatting 810 pounds. So he was a big guy. So they put this body together for the Terminator figure for Arnold. So I grabbed that one. That was $75. And I put that on him, and, like, but they've been copied, and now you can get one of these clone bodies for just a generic body, like, like this one is on, and this is about $17 for
that's
regular.
Much more reasonable.
Yes. Well, that's the thing. Like, I'm trying to show people how you can put things together a little bit on a budget. They're never going to be cheap. They're never going to be, walk in like $20 for a Barbie doll, and you can walk out with a figure. But
these are works of art, though, aren't they? That's what people have to realize. The time, the effort, and the materials to build these things.
Well, it's funny because I've got my own business. I've been in business for 17 years. I've I've lasted through the 2008 recession, another 8 years of a slow economy, and then the worldwide pandemic, and I'm still in business and still growing. And I put out a couple of these things here, and put out a figure for how much I would charge for these things, and so Chrissy Mayer had she put out on Twitter, where can she get a Hunter Biden action figure? And
I remember that.
so somebody tagged me, and this Balder 51 tagged me in it, and it's like, oh, I could do it. And so I put that together, and I just put it out there, and it blew up. And next thing you know, I'm getting a phone call in my studio. Here's this guy. He's like, where can I get one of these things? And I'm like, you realize this is all custom made, and there's about 9 hours worth of work in it. It's like there's about $50 to $60 worth of raw material in there, and you're talking about $150 a figure. And he says, "Good, I need 5."
Okay.
I'm like, okay. so I announced that I would only make a limit of 25, and I've just finished my 18th one.
Right.
But I told somebody how what these things would cost if I were making a figure of these YouTubers, if I were able to sell them. And I would say, depending upon the thing, you're probably talking about anywhere between $125 and $150.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, oh, you're just grifting on this to try yeah. So when you figure out I'm making about $10 an hour, so I'm taking a pay cut.
Not exactly grifting. Yeah.
I'm taking a pay cut of my typical rate of $30 to $40 per hour less than and working for $10 an hour, but I'm trying to make a fortune selling action figures. But I like the feeling of I've made so many friends in this community. And this goes back to the original question, which one was the one that I thought really, when I made Ryan Kinnell's face, I think that came out the best, the best likeness out there of what I've done so far. I've done Drunk 3PO. Let's say I've done Doomcock, Gary, Az, Drunk 3PO, Jeremy from Geeks and Gamers, Ryan, Mexican Iron Man, Cardinal Sin, Jay's brother Lee, who's got the Capable Gentleman channel.
Mm-hmm.
And that was sort of I saw their brothers, their best friends, that kind of hit a chord with me, with my brother, who was my best friend. You know what? I have his action figure. You guys should have your own action figures together. You can pose together. That would be it. So I made one for Lee.
You can battle them together. Exactly.
Well, it's just sort of to see all these things kind of put together. It's and that's why I don't have a whole lot of free time, and I'm trying to work all these things in here. I'm averaging about 4 to 5 hours sleep a night anymore, just trying to get some of these things done, because I just want to make people happy, but at the same time, I can't afford to just each one of these figures, the Doomcock figure. I did the math on it. There's $87 worth of raw materials in just that
Mm-hmm.
one. So
yes, because the tunic is all handmade. It's all got the brass on the front. I saw
right.
the details that you put on it, and the accessories that you put with these figures as well. Pops mentioned it earlier. Some of the things that you add, and you were talking about the speeder bike that you did for Mexican Iron Man, and all these extras that you put in with them.
Yeah, I was going to send, when I did Gary's, I was going to send him with a TARDIS. But then when I built it, and I found out how big it was.
Wow.
And I'm I have to mail this thing to California. It's going to cost me about $100. So it was
be cheaper to take a flight and give it to him in person.
Then I saw that he had this collection. He's got 8 different TARDISes there. I'm then I'm thinking I don't know that he's going to have the room for it. So I just made him a box that looked like a TARDIS. But I dressed him up with in a Doctor Who outfit. I think a friend of mine said to me is yeah, aren't you concerned that people are going to copy what you do? And I said, well, I don't pat myself on the back much, but I come up with some great accessories for these things.
Mm-hmm.
it's my sense of humor with, like, when I made the drunk 3PO's figure, I made him into the Drunkalorian. So he's wearing Mandalorian armor, but what I did was I cast C-3PO's chest plate and put that on for his armor. So he's got this whole thing that it's a Mandalorian, but he's wearing C-3PO looking armor. And the helmet that you can put on, he's got, instead of the rangefinder that comes down, looks typical, you pull it down, and he's got two circular eyes. When you put that down, he looks like C-3PO with a Mandalorian helmet. And there was a live stream where someone had asked him what his favorite beer was, and he said Corona. So I tracked down some little Corona bottles on eBay, and you know what? He needs a beer cooler. So I made him a gonk droid that opens up, and it's a beer cooler. And then I did what I did Jeremy's figure. And I wasn't I didn't know too much about the whole Geeks and Gamers thing. Then they had the whole Zack Snyder blow up and whatnot. And I was like, man, that was pretty crappy of him to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and these guys, they were all kind of down and stuff like that. And then I saw a video that Anna, that Star Wars girl, made. She called it in Defense of Geeks and Gamers. And she told this very touching story about when her sister passed away and how Jeremy stepped up and helped her so much and set up the GoFundMe and like paid for expenses and everything. I was like, you know what? This guy deserves a little like a thank you from the universe. So it's like I made him his own figure, but I made him a Trump Yoda because he is a big Trump fan. So I combined Trump's face with Yoda and with the ears and everything like that. And I put it like a little blue Jedi outfit with like, so it looked kind of like Trump's blue suit with a little power tie on there. So I made that for him and sent that out. And then I did, I think I did Cardinal Sins next because he had me on his show, and I was like, you know what? I want to thank him for doing this. So I
Cardinal Sins a great guy. He really is.
Yes, he is. He's such a sweetheart. It's like, so I made him, and I put him, I gave him a ray gun. I dressed him up in a punk rock outfit with all black and a Misfits t-shirt with the Misfits ghost on there, that ghost skull on there. And Gil's a vegan, so I made him a ray gun with a V on it, so he has a V gun.
See, this is what I love, and when we were talking, it's the little details, and I was, just blown away by, what you pick up on people just by kind of observing them and getting to know them. It is an incredible talent. Well,
that's like, you want something personal. You want something that's going to like, that's really going to connect with somebody. It's like, it's one thing to have like, I mean, I think it's so much fun to have something like you can have your action figure. I mean, who hasn't thought about like being on screen with your favorite characters? I mean, that's why people play video games, right? It's like you play a video game. And
yes, yeah.
Picture yourself in there, and you picture yourself like, and you want to join in with those things, and like and it, to me, it's just so nice when I see like an Az video, and he's got his figure just sitting there in the back like that.
He keeps it sitting on the shelf. You can see it behind his shoulder. Yes.
I just sent him for his birthday. In the box that I sent with I made him a Peeping Tom outfit that he, once he gets situated, I'm sure he'll put on his figure. I redid his outfit with like blue sweatpants with his colors of his channel with his logo. I did but I also sent him like a little computer chair to go along with it. Unfortunately, I didn't survive the trip, but a little desk that goes along with it. I sent him, I repainted I found a little 6-scale figure of a tabby cat, and I repainted it to look like his cat Belle.
Yes, so, there was a little bell. Oh, it was so cute.
So he's got that too. And I made him some headphones that like a replica of his headphones that he wears. But like I wasn't expecting like the kind of reactions. Like he really touched me when he was doing his reaction video with Robert Meyer Burnett. I was like, that gave me a little bit of the same sensation my brother had when he opened up his figure. It was like, it's like a little bit of a dopamine hit, to take me back to that spot a little bit to feel that. But I love
it proves how much people love the effort and work that you put into them. You know, the time that it takes to capture the likeness, the accessories, the clothing that you give. Paul Cook's got a question. He says, do you take photographs of your work and keep them in a portfolio or on your wall?
I have well, I just started doing a thing where with a Wix page, like making because there are people out there that wanted these things. Like I put out there like to some of these creators about like when I tell you I've been like bombarded with requests, that's an understatement. It's like people
Can you
people
imagine?
want these like, oh, can I get one? Can I get one? And there's so many people that want an entire crew of the whole Friday Night Tights thing. And I'm like, well, you got to get approval from these guys because I can't just like, I'm not going to just send these things out to somebody unless they give it an okay that they know them, they trust them. They're going to be like, I mean, God, there's people that love Az, and I'm sure if they had an Az action figure, they would be having him do all kinds of adventures.
Yep, that would be me. Yes.
but that's the thing. It's like, I've made so many friends in this community. Like last 2 years when like business slowed down, I was supposed to close down. That may or may not have happened. But I had some extra time in my hands, and I was like, and I've made so many friends in this thing. I never really participated in the chats. I didn't know anything about YouTube. I just did my thing. I made these and I put them out there, and I connected with so many people and talked with made so many different friends and things like that. And I want to give them something that they can enjoy. And these channels have become the entertainment for people. So instead of buying a Spider-Man figure or a Star Wars figure and giving money to Disney, which they don't want to do, like how much they would love to just be able to have their own Az figure on a shelf. And like, and I'm trying to keep things like, I mean, people make, there's a guy that just made a custom Cesar Romero Joker, and they're not mass producing. They're making a limited number of them. They're selling for $500 each.
Oh, that's crazy.
I'm trying to put these things out as close to cost as possible for some of the ones that I have gotten the okay from some people to make these and sell them to them. But I put in like every single one comes with a custom box, like and is oddly enough, that's one of the things that people like. They stop and they sit there and they stare at the box that I made them, and they just look at the box like, wow, this is so cool, and then the figure inside. So like to me, it's all about the whole presentation with things. So it's like that should be part of it. And so I've done some of these things, but it's like it's hard. Like I could probably do like maybe, people were talking about like, grifting and stuff like that. I might be able to produce like maybe 5 or 6 a month of, different characters that I've got like I can reuse the mold for.
I was going to ask you about mass producing and printing, but before I do, we've just got a couple more super chats that I'd like to say thank you to. So we had one from MB Geek Jesse. Great to see you as always. He says, well, it took a year to mail after I packed it, but Mossman is on his way to you as of Monday. Hope you enjoy when he arrives. Thank you, MB Geek. I've got something on its way for you as well, so thank you for that. I can't wait to see that figure. Always been a huge fan of Masters of the Universe, and he managed to find Mossman for me, so thank you. And we've also got another super chat from Mexican Iron Man. Thank you. He says, Andy, get pics from Purple and ask her what figure outfit she wants and charge me your full retail. Need by August. Purple, this is your early Christmas present. Oh, thank you.
That can happen. I'm currently working on one for Nina. And it's almost finished. Head sculpt's almost done. I ordered
Nina's
the outfit.
beautiful.
I ordered the outfit, but the boots were defective, so I had to order another pair of boots. So that's coming. So I should be now. The challenge with that's going to be like actually getting it to her, because she said the mail getting to Mexico is so unreliable. So what I think I might do is mail it to somebody I know that lives in Texas and see if they can UPS it from Texas to, rather than me just UPSing it from New Jersey to Mexico, which would probably cost a fortune. It might be a little bit cheaper to go from Texas to Mexico. It's a thought.
That's actually a good idea. I think that would work, but I can't wait to see that figure. Did you also do one of My Nerdy Home as well, if I remember correctly?
Yes, I did one for Steph. Like
Yes,
she was,
that was gorgeous.
she put that out there. That like after I did Ryan's, because her and Ryan are a team with that, and they work together a lot. So it was like, you know what, she's such a sweet person. She's like, you know what, let me see what I can put together there, and that was a good one there, because it's a sacrifice, right? So like you don't get the surprise element that, like, the, like, oh my God, the shock that you're seeing with this. Like when Doomcock opened his, he did this whole video on his during the live stream, and he was talking about, he's like, so when I opened this, my hands were actually shaking. And and like when Az was talking about his, he was like, he opened it up, and he's like, and he said in the video there, he's like, he saw that Gary got his, and he was like, man, nobody ever does that for me. And he says the next day his got there, and he opened it up, and he was just like, blown away. And that was always like the fun of, like, people opening these things up that you didn't know were coming, and all of a sudden it's just like, now, like, the cat's out of the bag of people see my name on something, they're just like, like Eric July was opening his up, and he so, oh, I know what this is. So
but it doesn't diminish the surprise. That's it. If anything, I would imagine it kind of makes people even more excited, because they know what's coming.
Yeah, it is. But like, when I get someone who, like, knows that I'm working on it, I can actually get them to send me pictures of them to so I can get better angles and things like that to work off of. Because it's a lot of times I'll go through hours and hours of video just looking for pictures of when people turn a certain way to get those angles, and it's tough. It's like, because you're trying to capture a likeness. And like, I just met Chrissy Mayer a couple weeks ago. She had a comedy show like in Atlantic City, so me and some friends went over there to see it. So like, I cranked out real quick. There's only about, like, I can only find like maybe 5 or 6 pictures of her boyfriend Frank. And so I tried to make one, and he kind of looks like a generic Italian guy, and in the sculpture. So it's like, it's him, but it's like, it's not my best work, but it was like the thoughts there. So because I made one of her, I mean, she was the bump she gave me with the whole Hunter Biden thing, which I've got that sense of humor to, very sarcastic, very, little edgy.
I can imagine that brought out the rebel in you doing that.
Yeah, well, and living in this area, like, I'm right next to Philadelphia. I was born in Philadelphia. It was there's not a whole lot of hurt feelings in this area. Like, you walk by, like, we go to other places in the country, people just think we're rude, but we don't mince words. We just get right to the point. We're like, it's very hard to insult somebody from this area, and if you do, they just kind of like, flip you the bird or something like that.
Just brush it off and get on with their day.
Yeah. It's like, it's not uncommon to be yelled at random and stuff like that. And you're just, whatever, we don't get our feelings hurt around here very, very much. So, at that, my sense of humor comes out with that. And like, sometimes it crosses lines. Sometimes it's taken in good fun, but
I like a naughty sense of humor, I've got to admit. But I just wanted to give a shout out and a big thank you to Eponymy's Minion. She sent us a member chat. She said, always wanted to get an action figure of my dog with demon wings, so Eponymy would have her minion. Eponymous Minion has this adorable little dog. She is incredibly cute, and she's started putting videos of her up on her YouTube channel, and I'm obsessed with them at the moment.
There's a company called Safari Limited, and they make really good representations. And there's also Mr. Z. You can find like these on eBay and some different retailers. They put out some incredibly detailed sculptures, figurines of dogs. In fact, this is one of the things I said to Mexican Iron Man when I made him a speeder bike. I put a little side carriage in there, and I sent in this link to buy a little Chihuahua for Bambino that he could put in the sidecar to ride along with him. So it was, I said, yeah, you need to order this, because I didn't tell him what for. I said, you just need to order this. So
I'm going to have to get that off you, because I would love a custom of my dog as well to put up on the shelf next to me. That would be amazing.
Yeah, like you can find those, like, Safari Limiteds had put out a whole bunch of different kind of dogs and breeds and so like you just have to find the size that's a little bit on the scale.
We've got a super chat from a very good friend, Manowar665, neighbour of the beast. Great to see you as always, sweetheart. He says, Mr. Masterson, see that several sculpts continue to be of notorious size queens in the Devil's Own scale. No 1/12, no peace, fighting 12 defiance. There is a ongoing, I would say, friendly battle with several people that are very much action figure collectors between the 1/6 and the 1/12 size. Do you have a preference?
I like the 6 scale. Now, I love action figures, and the best part about the 1/12 scale is you can have better accessories, because like this stuff takes up so much space with 6 scale. It's just enormous, like the amount of space that they just absorb. Now for me, it's very hard for me to work that small in a scale. Like I'm doing a commission right now that's probably about like a 1/8 scale of Elsa Lanchester for a Bride of Frankenstein head.
Oh, nice.
And it's, I'm almost 55 and my eyesight isn't what it used to be. Like, so I got like, magnifying goggles and things like that. So to try and work in that scale is very, very difficult. A lot of like now what they're doing with the 3D printing that a lot of these things are going through, they can take that sculpture that they do and they can just use the computer program to shrink it down and print it out and make molds out of that. With me working by hand, it's 6 scale works best for me because it's like it's big enough to work with accurately, but not so small that like it's any little deviation is going to really throw off a likeness. So it's much harder for me to work in. Now there's like Osmuerte does work in 12th scale stuff that looks great. But it's difficult. It's like, and then like, as I learned how to sew because my daughter was, we got her these American Girl dolls, and like, they were about $100 a piece. And, of course, all right. So we buy her the 18-inch doll, and she comes up to me, and it really is true. I come from a family of all boys. And my daughter was the first girl born in my family in 88 years. And I had no idea what to expect from having a girl. And she wrapped me around her little finger, like, and she's just like me. She's like, both my kids are like a lot like me. And but Daddy, I want this American Girl doll outfit. So I taught myself how to sew so I could like not put myself into bankruptcy with, buying her all these American Girl doll accessories. Like up in our playroom, I built her this massive doll house because she's got 11 American Girl dolls.
Oh, I used to love dolls'
They
houses.
each have their own rooms and stuff like that with their own beds. I made her a kitchen, a refrigerator, and everything that goes along with it. So it's that's how I learned how to sew, and I started figuring out on how to do it in this scale to make that happen. So yeah, that was how I learned how to sew with these things. I can't imagine going into 1/12 scale, so that would be really tough.
I can imagine. And just before I make a slight shift, because there is a couple of things I want to get your opinion on. We've talked about amazing figures and the work that you put in, but I found some really interesting bootleg figures that I'd like to get your opinion on. But before we do, would you ever use, and we kind of talked about it, would you ever use the 3D printing, or do you prefer to to sculpt with your own hands?
The 3D printing, I have the program called ZBrush, but it's a whole different learning curve. My son does 3D modeling with Blender, and I've kind of been like, I have a friend of mine who I feel a little bit guilty because I kind of got him hooked on collecting. And,
You were an enabler, is what you're saying.
his favorite character in Marvel was Hawkeye. So I showed him the custom Hawkeye that I made, and he was like, "Oh, that's so great." I was like, "I could never spend that much money. My wife would kill me." He was like, "You don't have to spend that much money. You can buy this body here, buy a head sculpt here, like I sewed together an outfit for him, like, and he bought a bow and arrow. Boom, he had a Hawkeye figure." So he did this incredible diorama. He's actually doing a commission for Az, and it's I helped him with, like, instead of making everything from scratch, he made everything, and we actually made this gigantic mold. It's a 1/7 scale bar scene from Final
Final
Fantasy VII.
Fantasy. Yes, I saw the pictures. I wondered
And
where that was from.
he's got, I've helped him out with a couple of things because I've got a lot of experience making all these different diorama bases and things like that. He's done 90% of the work. I've made, like, we figured out together, like, how to make the bar stools, how to, like, I made the barrel for him. My son created the 3D models for him for the cash register, the radio and things like that, that he got printed out. So what I'm trying to do is incorporate this and make a little network of people. Like, I can make action figures. This guy Tom can make diorama bases that you could display these things on. Mark Smith, Mark S47, who's around in these different chats. When I was repainting the Mexican Iron Man figure, pop it apart so you can, like, tape things off, and well, it's a cheaper made thing. So, like, when I popped it off, I knocked the wire off inside. Well, Mark does electronics work, so I said, "Can you fix this for me?" So he said, "Fix this Iron Man figure." He says, "Wait, is this for Mexican Iron Man?" Because he's a fan. He's like, I want to do a lot more than that. So I sent him the base, and like, Mexican Iron Man just put out this the video the other day with all the sound effects.
Yes.
And he put, like, there's 4 buttons on there, and each button, I believe, has 3 sound bites on it, and there's a magnetic switch in the front that plays music, different theme music, and as you pull it across. So I'm trying to, like, now we've got somebody who can add, like, sound effects to these custom figures and things like that to go around. So it's like, there's things that I can't do. I can do this part. This guy can do this part. This guy can do this part, and try and make this, like, little guild, if you will, that, like, people can get their fix for their display bases and things. So
I am continuously blown away, not just by the talent, but by the imagination that people show. And the more that I see of yourself and of the other creators that you talk about, it is incredibly impressive. And I love getting to see people who are passionate about what they create.
Well, that's the thing. That's like, there's so many things to be negative about. There's so many things to every time we turn around, we see something, like, bastardizing, like, something we love. It's like they sit back and they wait to see what's popular and see how they can twist and distort it. it's like they don't come up with anything on their own. It's just like, what can I destroy that's already existing?
Yes, what can I
And
corrupt?
yes, and when you can make something for somebody that can give them something that is tangible, that's like they can hold, and they can stay true to what they envisioned, they pictured it as. That's, you're putting something positive out in the world that you really can't get somewhere else. It's like, every time I've seen, I was, my first love is like Marvel Comics, and then Star Wars is like, right up there with that too. And seeing what's happened with both of those things, to me, it's like, like I've made, I wasn't happy with I love Jeremy Renner as a character, as an actor and things like that, but the character he portrayed wasn't Hawkeye. So I made a custom Hawkeye figure with the classic comic outfit. That's like, because Hawkeye in the comic book is like, he was Wolverine before there was Wolverine. He was the guy with the attitude. He was like in your face. He was like, the rebel. He was, I mean, here's a guy with a bow and arrow going up against supervillains that like, were giving like the Thunder God trouble. And he's like, I don't care. I'm going to fight you with my bow and arrow. So he's, he's a ballsy kind of guy who's getting in there, and like, Jeremy Renner's characterization, he was just like, he's kind of chilling in the background.
Yes, he was very much a side character, which is really unfortunate because I love, as you say, the actor. I think he's very charismatic. I just wish they had made more of him.
Yeah, and even when they give him a series and he's playing second fiddle to his replacement, and which was kind of depressing. It's like, and that's like the Moon Knight series. Like, the only thing that's coming with these things is like, at least I get a good Hot Toys figure out of it.
Yes, I would admit the Moon Knight figure does look spectacular.
Well, and that's the other thing too. Like, what I do is like, when I was little, my father would take us over to the farmer's market, and they had comic books over there for 11 for $1. This is back in 1976. So he realized pretty quick he could shut me and my brother Ed up for a while, for a week or so, just by spending $5. We would go over there and we would get these stacks and stacks of comic books, and Captain America became my favorite. It was neat because my father also fought in World War II, so it was kind of like a connection there. And we would sit there, we would watch the PBS World at War specials and things like that. And my brother Ed, his favorite was Thor, and so we would, have these, these things, and so when I felt kind of bad that like my favorite hero got these great representations on film, Thor was never quite there, and they didn't get his power level right until Ragnarok, and they put all the like, they took this Viking god and made him silly.
Yes, I hated that they made him into a joke because I loved the first Thor film. I thought it was, very appropriate to the character. With Kenneth Branagh directing, it was very Shakespearean, and that fits with Thor. But as you say, it went on. He became a joke, and then we had Fat Thor, and I hated it. I really did.
Yeah, it's like, and in this one here, I'm anticipating the disrespect, and I was just looking forward to like, I've never bought a Thor figure because like it was the proportions. When I first got the Captain America figures, I jumped on this thing because like there's so much for my idea of I'm never spending that much money for an action figure. It was,
yeah, it was a nice idea while it lasted. Yeah.
So it was about $200, but I figured, all right, it's going to be the only Captain America that I get. So I bought the first Avenger, then I bought the Avengers version, I bought the rescue suit version, then I bought the Civil War version. I was like, all right, that's it. And of course, they put out the Endgame version that finally had the chainmail on it. Like, all right, got to buy one more.
just one more, yes.
And but I limited myself to like when Sideshow came out with their Star Wars figures, I told myself I'm only going to buy the Jedi and Sith figures. That's all I did, because it was just like I look at and he has assembled himself an entire army of clones, which is cool looking.
Whenever I try to get a stormtrooper, I can't get one.
But I don't have the space for anything like that, so I have to be very picky about what I'm going to collect. So I figured, all right, I'm going to put everything else around my Captain America figures as my as my main base. But there's so many. Like I was always a big Doctor Strange fan. Now I'm going to get a Daredevil. I didn't buy the Daredevil one. I just got this Spider-Man figure, and they've been releasing Spider-Man figures for quite a long time.
That's
But I wanted the
nice.
classic suit. I wanted something that looked like the comic book, and they finally made one, so I jumped on it. And this is the one thing that when you collect Hot Toys figures, like you never have to worry about, as long as you take care of them, they will never lose value. In fact, they will appreciate.
This is true. I've got a couple. I've got the original Loki that was released, and I've just bought a third-party Arthur Morgan from Red Dead Redemption 2. Because
the third parties,
I had to have that figure.
This is such a great time to get into this hobby because, like, you've got tremendous quality coming out from third-party companies that are they're right up there. Maybe not quite as good as Hot Toys, but they are. They're very close. It's like, it's about $100 less. And again, they're never going to be cheap, but these aren't toys. These aren't things that you're just going to like toss around. You put them on a shelf and you can change the positions. They're not static, and you can make things that interact with them. And that's one of the things that I plan on doing, is showing people how to work with different materials so they can make like a diorama base for them or something they can fit in the background, and they can do it themselves and get that kind of satisfaction.
Yes, I've heard collectors, and I think Az has talked about it as well, once he gets these collections set up, how he's going to, position these figures. He's going to have them in a specific, order. He's going to have, his Avengers in one cabinet, all the Star Wars in another. And I love the idea of them having, like you say, a diorama with them. Yeah,
because it really brings it to life. It's one thing to have something sitting there and having a figure by itself, which looks amazing, but when you put like accents to it, it really makes it pop to life. It becomes like a little scene, and a Hot Toys figure. Anybody who's ever seen these, I've shown these to people. You can show pictures of Hot Toys sculptures, and people have a hard time differentiating between that and the actor in themselves, like an actual photograph of the actor. They're so good. There's actually pores in the skin, in the texturing on these, which I've recently learned how to do. So it's very, very impressive when you see this up close and you feel it. It's like you see how, like, yeah, this is not just a G.I. Joe. It's not just a Barbie.
You can see, you can feel the quality in them. You can see why they cost as much as they do, and why, as you say, they appreciate in value. We've got a couple more super chats, so big thank you. We've got one from Salty Texas C. Good morning. Had a fantastic show with him last night, and Zax and Max and Wakazishi Tea House. Great show. He says, may I get a Dave Chappelle beating his on stage activist attacker action figure? Great takes, great show. Hail. I love that. And Psychodwarf 9, thank you, love. He says, like guns and tattoos, I'm guessing you means you can't stop at one. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Just quickly before we start to wind down this fantastic stream, I wanted to get your take on some very terrible toys that I've tracked down. Now we know there are bootleg toys all over the place, but these are some of the funniest that I've found. So if I could just get your professional opinion on some of these, and honestly, some of these I actually wouldn't mind having just for the novelty. So we've got Thor on a scooter, which I thought was hilarious.
That's the crossover with the Boba Fett series. He's got his Vespa.
Now with Vespa action, I think it's funnier because it's bright pink for some reason. I don't know. We've got Special Man. I don't know how they get away with this. This one was one of my favorites, Demon Donkey. And this isn't someone who loved My Little Pony as a little girl. I fully admit it. I put my hands up. I had several of these things, so this one has a special place in my heart. Now, this one, when I saw it, I immediately thought of you.
Yeah, that's great.
That
That's
is
great.
wonderful. This I would actually pay good money to have this particular one, I've got to admit.
That was actually the hardest part about making the Mexican Iron Man figure, was like figuring out how I was going to do that sombrero.
I love it. Some of these are really weird. We've got Teen Pregnancy Beautiful. Okay. Sassy Jackie. I think for 88 cents, I would probably buy that. I don't know what makes him sassy, but apparently he's action. So there you go. Robert Kopp.
There's Darius.
There's no way they didn't know what they were doing with this.
Oh yeah.
Because
Well,
the references that they've put on the back.
well, that bleeds over into the third-party companies, because they have, like, I bought this last year of the Green Menace. It's like the Green Goblin figure, but they have to put, like, they can't use the name or copyright, like, that. So it's a fabulous figure. I have him hanging up here, and it goes so well with the classics. But like, they'll have the Green Menace, they'll have like Dr. Octopus, they call him the Ock, and so they'll steal some of those cheesy names.
Steve Martin says sassy. Exactly. I don't know why he's sassy, but there you go. Paul Cook says Mighty Thor from the new movie, quite possibly. Knowing Marvel, yes.
I was just hoping for a Thor figure with a good outfit, and they're putting him in this royal blue thing that just doesn't scream Viking to me.
Mm-hmm.
Look at that.
For all you Transformers out there, Supercock.
That's the Jack Murphy version, I guess.
This one I've seen before a few times, Adventure Man. Adventure Man has seen things.
Yeah, there's
that demon donkey again. Let's see, Big Fella.
Oh.
I love stupid toys. Space Power Warrior, for all you Star Wars fans out there.
Wow.
Have you ever come across these in conventions and
places
like that?
I've seen some of these like pop up, like dollar stores and things like, and the closeout, like Ollie's and Big Lots. You'll find a lot of them there, which is interesting because like I've actually used some of those things to, like, when I've made some figures that I've sent out for people that I wanted them to look particularly cheesy, so I would put them on one of those bodies.
I love it. Fantasy Galaxy Cup. I had to bring up some of these just to get your professional opinion, because for some reason they just make me very, very happy. And as you say, I've come across them a few times in the Poundland and the very cheap stores, and very occasionally I will grab them just because.
Well, it's funny because like sometimes you can get, like, it's cheaper to buy stuff like that. Like you can go, like, the dollar stores will have those little generic figures, and they'll have like little cups and bowls and things like that you could use in a diorama with something else. It's like, you really have to keep your eyes open for things like, all right, it's this, but I could use it for that. And like, and you can mix things up a little bit, like, and you end up buying something really cheap, but it's like, it works in your overall display. So it has some value, not necessarily the intended value. But
yes.
It's got some value to it.
It's got some value, absolutely. And Darius mentioned, yes, I skipped over that one because I don't want to get myself cancelled. Absolutely. Oh my gosh. Guys, this has been an amazing show. Before we wind down and let everybody get on with the rest of their Wednesday, and let me say, first of all, Andy, thank you so very much for joining us today.
Thank you for having
me. Loved getting to talk about this. I'd love to do another show down the line and really kind of get into the creative process of making these amazing figures.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That sounds like so much fun. It's like, I never imagined people would find this interesting to talk about, but like, it's, the whole process is like, it's fun. It's like, and you're not just copying something somebody does. It's like you make something a little bit with a little tweak to it, and it makes it, people may know they're getting like Ryan Kindle knew he was getting his figure. But I said, all right, well, what do you want with like, what kind of theme? Like, oh, I'd love to have like a Sith theme. Like, but I made him a little droid. It's a pizza oven. And so and it looks like Mario. He's painted to look like Mario. So, and I put in like, M4R10 like was his little oven droid. So I put that in there with it, and along with a big bird and an Elmo that he could kill.
Yes, I remember his battle with Sesame Street. That was unintentionally hilarious, I think.
Well, I definitely have some more in the works. They should be,
Is there any that you could
shortly.
Drop a hint for, or they going to be a surprise for the whoever?
Well, there's a few that are surprises. I have Nina's that's almost finished.
Mm-hmm.
But I have a list of different creators, and I'm trying to get some things out there that are hopefully that can actually be used like sort of in a charitable sense, because some people in the community need some help. I'm hoping that I can send something off to people that can be raffled off to
that's
collectors
a idea.
That could help out, like more so than just like draw some attention to it, like and so you get donations and things like that. This might actually like drive something forward a little bit. So hopefully, the biggest problem is just waiting for shipping to get from because all the supplies come from China, and sometimes they're quick. Sometimes I'll order something, get it in a week and a half. Sometimes it's like 3 weeks to a month. So.
Yes, I've heard there's been a bit of a backlog with shipping, but it seems to be slowly easing. So that's good.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Guys, if you are not subscribed, and a big thank you to the moderators for putting the links out. Andy has his own channel. He's also on Twitter as well. Please check out his work. Absolutely love the reaction videos that you've been putting up recently. As you say, just to see the joy on people's faces when they receive these figures, it's incredible.
Yeah, that's to me, that's the payoff. It's just knowing that, like, you see these folks that are like that, you put a lot of yourself out. Well, this, like, people think that it must be really easy to just get on camera and talk, and it's not. It's I mean, I've been a teacher for 20 years, so I'm used to talking to people, and I don't have like so much of the inhibitions out there, but trying to find something that's going to be interesting and putting it out there in such a way that, like, people are going to tune back in. It's like, I mean, you guys go out there and your personality really shines through. I get out there, I show stuff that, like, physical things. It's like, it's not, I'm not putting myself out there so much. I'm putting like objects out there. You guys get out there and it's your personality that sells things that shines through, that people gravitate to. And when you see something that's actually causing pain and like and sadness, that like you have, it's bothersome. It's like, so when you give somebody an opportunity that can perk them up, something to be happy about, that's a nice feeling.
Mm-hmm. It really is, and you mentioned it before. This we really need, especially at the moment, especially in regards to the IPs that people love. People are feeling very lost, especially ones who have been fans for probably their entire lives, and to see something that they've taken to their hearts and something that they've passed on to their kids, to see it fall apart. It does hurt, and to have this little bit of joy from a creator such as yourself, it really does make the difference.
Yeah, that's when you put so much of yourself into something, and like it was such a joy for you, and you've been there since the beginning, and then somebody comes along and pushes you out of the way and says it's mine now. It's insulting.
It is. But there is always a way to fight back. You either close your wallet or you do what we do and either make fun or talk about the positives. And that's what I try to do. I love to try and, if I can possibly, put a positive spin on something. A big thank you to Manowar665, Neighbour of the Beast, once again for sending us a very generous super chat. Thank you, love. He says, great show. Andy's got my sub, strictly not for espionage purposes.
Hey, it's funny because like I put out there everything, my whole process about how I make these things, and like and people can copy. I encourage people to try and do these things. Like Tom, who's building the diorama for As, like I jump in there with him about like here, do it this way, do it this way. Like I want to share this knowledge out there because there's a lot of things that I learned. Like there's a fellow from Doomcock show, Gary Ambrosia, who I've connected with. He's a master at molding and casting things, much better than I am. So I've been picking his brain about like how to get better with some of the stuff that I do. It is really the thing that I find the most empowering is that all my life I grew up poor and I didn't have money for anything like that. Like so, I made a lot of things, and you're growing up, like your car breaks, you learn how to fix your car. Like, I worked construction and
adapt and evolve. Yes.
And so what I found was like, if they don't have it, make it yourself. And if you apply yourself to it, you can find a lot of information out there about how to do these things and how to make these things yourself. And it gives you the satisfaction of like, especially now with this Cricut machine. I mean, that was the thing when I originally planned on making the Doomcock figure. I was thinking, am I going to have to embroider all this like elaborate work on there? And then I got this Cricut machine. It's like, wow, I can just print this out of vinyl and iron it on. I had to make the design myself, but it was like, it made it feasible anyway. So,
absolutely. And you
can do it yourself. That's the most important thing. You can do things yourself. Create your own media, create your own stories, create your own visuals, like make your own art. So many people have this potential in them they don't realize. And that's what I want people to capture.
Absolutely. And you do beautifully. Just quickly, let me say a massive thank you to Darius Munchausen, who sends us a super sticker and a box of popcorn. Thank you, love. And a huge thank you to everybody who sent super chats, who have sent member chats, super stickers. You guys are incredible. And again, some fantastic comments in the chat today. You were on fire. Let me say a massive thank you to Andy for being such an incredible guest. Loved doing this show. I knew it was going to be fun, and it's been fantastic. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. And anytime you want me back, I'll jump on if I can.
I would love to. In fact, if you would ever consider it, I would love to do a kind of joint sculpting.
Oh yeah,
perhaps a tutorial to kind of go through the process of making one of the heads. That would be incredible, because I would love to try and emulate what you do, see if I can do it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We can definitely do that. I can show you all the tools and stuff that I use, and a little set of calipers and measuring things. Yeah, definitely.
That would be incredible. All right, guys, let me say a massive thank you once more to Andy for being an incredible guest today. Thank you to everybody who joined. Thank you to everybody who left comments, super chats. You guys are amazing. Please, if you are not subscribed to this gentleman here, do so. He has a fantastic channel. And as I say, some of the reaction videos, they're incredibly moving that have been uploaded. Guys, I will be back on Friday. I will also be joining Sil Abdul tomorrow on his channel, and we've got the final episode of Moon Knight review coming out, so lots more content coming out this week. Guys, take care of each other. Have a fantastic rest of your Wednesday, and we will see each other very soon.